Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bullseye, my daily vlog where I go deep into a particular issue and give it perspective and bring clarity from clutter. And today's topic is as important as many others, but this is crucial to our day to day lives as citizens of every town and municipal area. As you would know, that the municipal elections in 7 municipalities all over Goa has been delayed beyond imagination. The terms of all the assemblies are over. Sorry, the terms of all the municipal corporation, one municipal corporation and other councils, 10 other councils have been are over in April, and the government has now decided to push these elections back uh, beyond any reasonable limits by simply stating or issuing an ordinance stating that the delimitation needs to be done of wards and the caste and other reservation based exercise has to be done, and this process will take a very long time. This after the government knew what the dates for the next election should be and what the dates were with regard to the expiry of the term of all the civic bodies. Obviously, this has led to a lot of political churning in a sense, but more importantly, there are two petitions that are in the High Court where public spirited citizens have gone, making some extremely important points, and most important of them being is that for the next 6, 7, 8 months or whatever, our municipalities will be run by administrators and not elected people. Is this good for all towns? Is it good for our civic development? Is it good for the maintenance and the assurance of rights of citizens to public services? Because they're ultimately paying taxes and they need to look at people's representatives who will put their views forward and not just administrators. And that is what our discussion will be. And we are obviously getting into the two petitions, especially the meatier one, which asks some more fundamental questions that are important. The question that we are asking is: has the Goa government deliberately delayed elections to its civic bodies? And the word deliberate is important. So we also, as I said, look into the key points raised in these petitions, which are very important and need to be looked at, which the High Court is looking at. Because these petitions are not just a technical challenge. At the heart is the ordinance which seeks to do this exercise of delimitation and reservations in the municipal areas. Now, the second petition, there was one petition filed first, but the second petition filed by social activist Trajan de Mello addresses, as I said, the more fundamental question, which is the violation of Article 243 EU of the Constitution, which essentially and more importantly speaks of the expiry of the term of civic bodies and the fact that upon that expiry, new municipalities with new elected members in the councils and corporations have to be constituted without any vacuum. So this is not about delimitation, this is not about reservation of seats. This is not just about the language of the Goa Municipalities Act. It is a much larger question about democracy in our civic bodies and the manner in which that is being curtailed and quashed by delaying elections. And it is almost as if to say that the government knew about this, the government planned it, the government kind of flew a kite and flew a trial balloon saying elections are going to be held. Parties started working, informal campaigning started. The government knew it all along that this ploy would be made, and on the guise of reservations, delimitations, this delay would happen. I'll come to the political reasoning behind this a little later, but let's stick to the legal part. Now, this petition, as I said, it challenges the Goa Municipalities Ordinance. It challenges this whole delay of elections. Now, the state of Goa has 14 urban bodies. It has 14. including it has one corporation of the city of Panjim and 13 municipal councils. Now, these petition actually focuses on the 11 municipal councils, whose elections are at the center of this controversy. They are Mapsa, Bicholi, Sankli, Valpoi, uh, Perne, Ponda, Margaon, Murbugaon, Kepe, Kunkoli, Sange, Kurchore Kakora, and Kankon. These are the municipalities where elections have been are a part of this petition. Now, in 2020, and this background is very important to you, was in 2020, the term of the earlier councils had expired around November 2020. Even then, this is not the first time they are making this or playing this game, as I would say. In 2020, also administrators were appointed pending elections. Then later the election process was started, and then it was again delayed because of legal challenges. Then the delimitation was notified on February 4th, 2021, and then the reservation notifications were issued in various stages. They were challenged before the High Court and the Supreme Court. Eventually, the 2021 elections were held in two phases. Instead of immediately after November 20th or before November 20th, it was held in 2021. The first phase in March 20th, 2021, and the second phase was held on April 23rd, 2021. Now, these things matter because municipal councils, as I said earlier, they were constituted, their first meetings were held, but the entire process of governance was delayed from November to almost May, when there were no elected representatives actually looking at it. So this is important because the 5-year term of any municipality is not some secret that is hidden under a box and kept there for 5 years. The government knows about it, the municipalities know about it. There is absolute transparency in when the elections need to be held and the new municipalities to be constituted. There is no rocket science here. So therefore, why doesn't the government do what it has to do in terms of delimitation, reservation, when it has the time? Why do they think of doing this, having to issue ordinances in a hurry to start the process of delimitation after the expiry of the previous term of the council? I mean, this is not just administrative incompetency, but this is a deliberate exercise in curtailing democracy as far as these municipal bodies are concerned, and taking away the rights of the people to have elected councils, so that the work of the city can continue. And this is when the whole thing becomes very serious, because when the elected councils are replaced by administrators, there is a power shift away from the people to the bureaucracy. It shifts from the voter to the executive. It is as good as having president's rule instead of assembly rule in a state, and that too indefinitely. Because ultimately, you need your local representatives to go to when you have to discuss roads, you have to discuss drains, garbage, markets, sanitation, street lights, taxes, parking, everything, town level parking, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, these elephantine projects like smart cities that come in. Ultimately, the councils need to keep a watch. Administrators won't do it, elected members need to do it. Now let us come to the ordinance. The ordinance that was issued on 22nd April 2026, about 3 weeks ago. And this amended the Goa Municipalities Act 1968 and introduced a new process of delimitation and reservation. Now again, as we asked, the petition asked and public asked, why was this done at the 11th hour when you had so much of time to do it? Now, let us now look at paragraph 11 to 14 of Trajan de Mello's petition. And this is being argued by advocate Abhijit Gosavi. And this petition states that the ordinance for the first time introduced an entirely new procedure involving delimitation, reservation, and public objections. Empirical data, draft notifications, everything was new. The consequence of this new process would be to prolong the electoral process by at least 6 months. It says at least 6 months, but it could even go on for another 6 months for all you care. And that defeats the mandate of Article 243U, that you need to have immediate elections and there cannot be any gap. Now, this petition does not say that the delimitation is unnecessary. It does not say that backward castes should not be represented. It does not say anything of this sort. It only asks why was it not done on time, and if it was not done on time, then it shouldn't be applicable in this election, because Article 243 of the Constitution of India is far more important and supersedes this ordinance. And that is important. So, this ordinance, for the first time, the State Election Commission will fix the number of wards. First fixes the number of wards, not the first time, of course. This will take about, say, 60 days. And then it will prepare a draft delimitation in the official gazette, and that has to be put up to the public to invite suggestions in 30 days. Then time for written objections has to be for another 30 days. And then the written objections are considered, and the final delimitation is done after 30 days. So ideally you have your 60 days plus 30 days plus 30 days. So 120 days goes only in this process. Then the empirical data about the backward castes has to be got from the Goa State Commission for Backward Castes. That is important. Now that draft reservation of seats based on this empirical data from the Goa Backward Caste Commission has to be put, and then the invitation for suggestions and objections has to be given after the draft notification for reservations for backward castes has to be put. So objections and suggestions have to be received in 30 days time, and then the final notification for reservations has to happen in another 30 days. So 60 days goes as far as the draft notification and the final notification for reservation of seats for backward caste goes. And it is only 30 days from the publication of the final reservation can they actually issue elections. So if both the processes of delimitation and reservations for backward castes goes on side by side simultaneously, then you need to have 120 days for the entire process, as I've said, plus another 30 days to declare elections, and that makes it about 180 days if all goes well. I'll repeat that, if all goes well. So it is a 6-month minimum process. It can get delayed. Now, you cannot allow a constitutional deadline to pass and have all your civic bodies in limbo for next 6 months on the pretext or on the excuse of introducing a new procedural ladder which pushes elections further away. Now, what happens is, but then this is exactly what people are essentially saying, intelligent people and people who care for Goa are saying, is that the ordinance has been issued as a front, but the real reason is something else, which is not coming out into the public. And from political discussions that Goa has been having, we are to understand, and we believe that there is merit in this argument, that the BJP did not want the municipal elections to happen at this point of time, primarily because this would lead to a lot of in-party fighting, because for these municipal elections you will have 3 or 4 people in each ward who would be vying for the ticket, and ultimately one person would get the ticket, the other 2 or the other 3 would get disgruntled, and this dissatisfaction would percolate into the campaigning for the assembly elections, which are due very, very shortly as well. So the party did not want a cadre which is fighting amongst themselves before the assembly elections, if the municipal elections were held just before the assembly elections. This was the logic. So the ultimate reasoning, and a lot of people say this in confidence and even openly otherwise, is that the BJP did not want a disgruntled cadre of people dissatisfied with each other in the municipal levels, and that infighting would ultimately play out in the assembly election, so they took a chance. My I have another question. And I'm going to address that later. And that question has to do with what is the Congress doing? Why is the opposition not raising its voice against this? Why does it have to be social activists and other people taking the matter to court? This Congress's silence and the opposition's silence will also be something that I'm going to leave you with. Now let us go into this other issue of the backward cast data and empirical reservation. Now, this we all know that reservation has to be based on a proper data, and data cannot come overnight. Even the backward cast commission needs to be given time to give you that data. That data also requires grassroots mobilization, because the last data or the last census to determine backward caste was way back in 2011. So almost 15 years have passed. You cannot be using 2011 data to have a municipal election in 2026. And you are aware of this. The government was completely aware of this. The data was required, and the government knew in 2021 that the elections are going to happen in 2026. For 5 years, they were either sleeping or were put into a long-term slumber, and they refused to get out of the slumber till now. So this is important. The big question is, why was exercise to give you backward cast details and data not commissioned earlier? Why should not the Goa Backward Cast Commission be pulled up for this? And this is extremely important, and that is where we need to look at, because the state cannot delay this preparatory process and then use this very delay as a justification of delaying your civic elections. This is just not on. This is not only undemocratic, but this is a cruel blow to the people in our different cities and municipal wards who just want honest governance, because ultimately they are paying their taxes. So this is a harsh slap on the taxpayer as much as anything else. Now, this first full official census for the schedule, by the way, the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes data, as I'm mentioning again and again, is a 2011 census data. And what is bizarre is that for 15 years this has been allowed to go. One can understand for 5, 6, 7 years, but if you're doing an election in 2026, you must need data which will at least be fresh for the next 10 years. So now let us look at the High Court proceedings. See, the High Court has done two things. It has sent the first petition, which is asking for a quashing of the ordinance itself, back to the assembly and saying that, okay, you get that relief from the assembly. Now, that first petition, with due respect to the petitioner and others, yes, they went in to the court in the right spirit, but the prayer that they had was merely to quash the ordinance, which I felt was a less of a demand or less of a problem, or the less of a need, because the real issue doesn't only lie in the quashing of an ordinance. The real issue lies in stating that there has been a grave violation of Article 243 of the Constitution, and that is what Trajan de Mello's petition with Advocate Abhijit has done, and that is most significant. Now let us come to the relief sought, and that's important. That the High Court issue a writ of mandamus directing the respondents to immediately initiate and complete the election process in a time-bound manner. The petitioner also has asked for a writ of certiorari, questioning and quashing the ordinance. So in the second petition, quashing of the ordinance is the second prayer. The first prayer is to address the violation of 243U and have elections as soon as possible, without waiting for the entire delimitation and the caste census. The petitioner also agrees, or also seeks that this particular ordinance should not apply to this election of these 11 municipal councils. And this is important, because if the court does not strike down the entire ordinance, the next prayer should be that this ordinance should not apply in these elections, because much water has flown under the Mandovi, in the Mandovi and the Zuari, and this is yet another enough is enough that we need to address. Now let's ask some broader political questions. The Constitution gives us the mandate. The State Election Commission conducts elections. The government provides the administrative framework. This is the way democracy works. The director of municipal administration, he knows when the councils are expiring. So I'm essentially looking at all this while I'm now zeroing in on who are the people who are accountable and must answer. Because ultimately you have to zero in on specific people and specific positions of and to people who are sitting on different chairs, earning their salaries from the taxpayers' money and then failing the taxpayers. Okay, so the government of the day is the culprit. The Directorate of Municipal Administration is the culprit. Because this is not a minor scheduling mistake. It's a violation of the Constitution and an absolute injustice to the people of Goa who are paying your salaries. And then you have these administrators. Administrators are there for a temporary purpose. They cannot become a consequence of delayed elections. They cannot be byproducts of a weak and inefficient governance as far as municipal elections are concerned. And then the people who are beneficiaries are not the ordinary citizens, it's not the ordinary voter, it's not the municipal ward, it's not the councillors, it's nobody. It is just a political party that wants the political comfort of no infighting as it goes to the next elections. It's as simple as that. And this is a repeat exercise. So this offense, it is almost as if the government is becoming a repeat offender here. It delayed it in the previous term, it's delaying it in this term. So all we are calling for is a bit of respect to the people, a bit of respect to the Constitution, and a bit of respect to the idea that our cities need governance as much as the state does, because they are in a pitiable condition. You have garbage situations, you have parking situations, even smart cities like Panjim are looking so unsmart and disgusting. There is a foul smell everywhere. The garbage system has absolutely gone to the dogs. The cities are crumbling, and then you have no elections. Do you understand that for the next 6 months, 7 months, or even longer, there is going to be no proper policy making made, no vision plan for cities? There'll just be an exercise in just signing some files and clearing expenses and processing salaries. Now, what is important here is that we know there is going to be time, but we also know that there is going to be a very, very big delay which has led to this. Now, what is important here is, and what is most important in conclusion, is the last question that I would like to ask. And that is to the Congress, because that is the so-called principal opposition. Where is any sound and fury from the Congress? Why is the Congress accepting this torture and this assault on civic democracy? Why does it not want to even raise the question of a constitutional violation by a political party? Is the Congress being a responsible opposition? Why didn't the Congress even raise this issue strongly enough in the assembly? Why are they not even taking to the streets? Why are they not educating people? Is it because the Congress does not want to spend money on these elections because it knows it's going to lose most of these elections anyway? Is this the reason? If not, then please respond. What is the reason for your silence? What is the reason for you not to take on the ruling party on this? Are you hand in glove with the ruling party? Have you decided that let us play this friendly game and not have this headache of municipal elections, because even we don't care for the governance of the cities either. A, we won't win, B, we don't care. So the issue is that we don't know, we don't care. If this is the attitude of the opposition, then God help us and God help Goa. And before I conclude, my final plea would be, we pray that the court fast tracks this, gives a decision quickly, and gives orders to the government and to the municipalities and to the State Election Commission, more importantly, because they will conduct it, to conduct elections to the 11 municipal councils immediately without waiting for the delimitation exercise or the caste census exercise to happen, because Goa deserves better. Goa needs honest governance, and Goa needs its cities to be prevented from the destruction that is happening now. Thank you.